You're not causing an unfair burden on a different race. He said, other than that, all of these other issues are yours. You need to settle these on a local level. This time zone issue, that's your issue. The money issue about building a new high school, that's your issue. That's not the federal government's issue. He told me, he said, I don't care if you get to build a new high school or not. If you do, good. But you've got to come within your federal obligation of desegregation. And I said, yes, sir. And that's what we had to start doing. And we had a decision to make. I listened to Kirby Smart about a year ago at SEC Media Days, and he was talking about leadership, and he said, you can find a lot of books and things written about leadership, but what you won't find is somebody that talks about the cost of leadership. And the cost of leadership is something that's overlooked a lot of times that we don't think about and we don't talk about. And the cost of leadership is important because leaders have to understand that cost and accept those costs. And he said there were 3 things that you need to understand about what a good leader has to understand they're going to have to do. Number 1, you're going to have to make decisions that are going to negatively impact people you care about. We've had to do that. Number 2, he said you're going to have to do things that people are not going to understand and you're not going to be able to defend yourself. And I see that happen to me every single day. And leaders have to do that. And so when we've had to make some of these decisions and we went to the federal judge, we made a decision. Was everything perfect? No. Everything's not going to be perfect. But we sat down, we weighed the options that we had, we looked at the money, we looked at the kids, we looked at the schools, we looked at the facilities, and we weighed all these different things, and we came up with a plan that we thought was best to consolidate with the money we had, the time we had, and that's what we did. And you know, it's probably 3 of the best years of education that I ever had was assistant principal at Lafayette High School. And some of the people that helped get me elected this last time feel like that I turned on them and feel like that I do not support them because of that situation, because we chose to build the school in Valley, and that's not true. That's not the reason the decision was made. The decision was made because when we had to weigh everything, we had to make decisions that was best for the entire group. And that's another part of what Kirby was talking about, is that you're going to have to make decisions for people, and they're not going to understand why you have to make them. And that's what we had to do. And so in doing this, it's tough. And the decisions we've had to make are tough. But they had to be made for the good of the entire county, for the good of the system. And we made those decisions. We have done a lot in 3 years. In the 3 years that I have been in office, we have gotten a lot done. We have put roofs on buildings at every campus. We have bought equipment and machines to clean these buildings. We have completely painted and renovated and fixed rotting fascia and paint on exterior buildings of 3 of our campuses. We spent over $500,000 on new desks and furniture for 2 of our schools that we have not bought desks and bought furniture in years and years and years. We've not built a building in Chambers County since the early 2000s. And we're about to embark on building a brand new high school for our county and for our kids that all of our kids and our grandkids and great-grandkids are going to be able to be proud of and go to. These other areas are leaving our schools and our school district behind. If you don't believe me, go to some of these ball games at some of these other places. Look at some of the facilities that they have. And you know, we're in a teacher shortage. And people wonder, why is it so hard to get teachers? Buildings and facilities and safety and those type things matter. And in a climate that we're in, all of these people are looking for things. It's a competitive market, and where can we go that's better for me? Where can we go that's better for my kids and our kids? And that's what people are doing. It's not like it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, where you went to the school in the area that you lived in and grew up in, period. You didn't move anywhere, you didn't go anywhere. That's where you went to school. Now, it's not like that. The way we are with social media, people are moving and they're looking for different things. They're moving to different communities, and we have got to get caught up. And that's what we're doing, and that is what we've done. We've been in the ring. We have gotten bloody with it. We've gotten our nose bloodied, and you know, like I said before, we don't think everything that we've done has been, that everything that we've done has worked out just like everybody wanted it to. And nothing and no decision you ever make is going to work out just like everybody wants it to. But when I ran, we had a set of things that we said we were going to do, and we did them. And there are not a lot of politicians that can say that. We said we were going to do these different things, and we've done them. And I pride myself on that. I told a group the other night, I was at the Farmers Federation meeting, and I told them, I said, I don't know of another politician that's done more to make people mad to not get reelected but me. And that's the truth. But we had a decision to make. Are you going to do what's right, or are we going to kick the can down the road and do what everybody else has done and just appease everybody and make everybody happy? That's not what we did. We picked it up, we picked the can up, and we said, we're not kicking this can down the road any longer. We're going to move this thing forward, and we're going to get this thing done. And that's what we've been doing. And that's what we're going to continue to do. We've got a plan to continue to do that. We've got a plan to get our STEAM magnet school built in Lafayette. We've got a plan to work on and rebuild the 2 elementary schools in our feeder pattern in the valley. We're going to keep building our athletic department, our athletic programs. We're going to start building a daycare center for staff members in Chambers County. I'm meeting with an architect next week that is going to go to Shawmut Gym, and we're going to remodel Shawmut Gym area, the inside of Shawmut Gym, not the gym part, but the other side where the pool area was. And we got about a 3,000 square foot area that we're going to remodel, and we're going to turn that into a daycare center for our staff members. For staff members in Chambers County that would like to send their kids to daycare and have affordable, cheaper daycare. That's one of the things that we're going to do for our teachers, to try to draw and to bring teachers to our area. So we're thinking outside the box. We're doing things differently. We're making big, major moves. And a lot of those moves, a lot of times, are not popular. But 7,700 plus people did not bubble my name in last time to sit there and not do things. They voted for me. The people of Chambers County that voted for me to do stuff. They wanted me to do things. They didn't want me to stand idle and not do things. And one thing I told my wife, when we're doing this, we're not bunting. We're not down 6 runs in the bottom of the 8th and we're bunting trying to get on base. We're swinging for the fences. Now, do you swing and miss sometimes? Absolutely. But we're not bunting. And the people of Chambers County can know that we are fighting for them, we're in there working for them, and we're going to continue to work for them and work for your kids and work for the betterment of our system and to make people want to move here and live here, because our school system is something that everybody can be proud of. And that's what we're going to keep doing. And what I would ask everybody for is the opportunity to finish what we started. Right. We've only been in this 3 years, and it's very difficult to get into something and fix everything in one term. You know, you get in the first year, you're trying to figure everything out. Second year, you do a good bit. The third year, you're figuring out if you're going to have to run again if somebody's running. And your whole 4th year, you spend running a campaign. And I mean, so you got 1 year you do a lot with, but that's the way things are, and that's the hand we're dealt, and that's what we're going to do. But I would ask that you give me a chance, and people of Chambers County give me a chance to finish what we started.
What are the long-range goals for the old high school?
Valley High School is going to become the middle school. That's where we're going to move the middle school to. We're going to move the middle school kids over there. We're going to do some remodeling. We've been already over there doing some painting. We've been doing some upgrades to the athletic facilities, getting ready for consolidation and mergers, not knowing, because we didn't know until July of this year, June of this year, that whether we were going to be able to consolidate now or not. We wanted to go ahead and consolidate where we could start building the new magnet program in Lafayette.
And what would the old junior high be used?
We don't know yet. That building will probably, well, we don't know, but it will probably be sold, or another entity will come in and use it. We're in the process right now, 3 of our other buildings that we've closed, working with local entities, local city officials, to try to figure out ways to allow our local governmental agencies to be able to use those buildings. But one thing that we're coming up against is there's a state law that mandates that we have to sell those properties for fair market value. And we also have another thing, that several of our properties, we've had to do deed searches on these, that they were donated 100 something years ago. Some of the deeds, when they came to us, said that if you don't use those any longer, you sell them, they revert back to the landowner. So we got to be very careful when we go through this process of if we sell property or give property or what we do with it. You can't give it, but you can do things for fair market value. So we're in the process now of working with local entities to see that the buildings don't just go down and are not, we've been doing a lot of work at I don't know if you've noticed, at Langdale Auditorium. We've repainted, reworked the fascia. They just got finished there. They're about to start working on the new awnings. We're doing landscaping out there because our kids are going to have to use that facility for the next 2.5 years while the new school's being built. So we're doing a lot of work on some of these buildings and trying to get them back up, but it takes a lot of money. And we're in a great county. Chambers County is a great county. It's a great county to live in. But our tax base is, that's one of the things that makes it attractive here. And that's another thing we're proud of. We're building this school without asking the taxpayers for any more money. We are going to build this school without having to go to the taxpayers to ask for an increase in taxes. And we've been able to do that because of the mergers and finding money that we've saved in closing and merging some of our other buildings. So we've done a lot, and we said what we were going to do, and I appreciate all your support, and I would ask for your support and your help at letting us finish the job we started. Any other questions anybody has?
And I got a comment to make. My wife was well comfortable in her job at J.P. Powell as a school nurse for several years, and they closed the school down. And she supports you 100%. She moved her over to the east side, and her and another nurse working together, and she's having to bump around and everything, and she's had to make a sacrifice. Yep. But a lot of your people are making sacrifices right now.
They are.
But I grew up in Opelika School District. They restructured 3 times while I was going to school there. Every time I get ready to go to junior high school, they'd move it to another building. And if I got ready to go to high school, they built a new one. It was always changing. And people here are just spoiled. But if they ever, the ones that's here tonight that take the information you're given tonight, they talk to other people about it and educate people on what's really happening, they're going to see that this is all about the kids and the future of our county, and it's going to be a great thing when it's all over with.
Well, we love the traditions of all of our schools. We understand and know that where people went to school and where you grow up in your community is important. It is important. Your mascots and your colors and alumni, they are important. But we can't make decisions for people that walked in buildings 30 years ago. We've got to make decisions for the kids that are walking in the buildings now, or that are going to walk in them 30 years from now. And that's been the issue, and the problem is that we've been making decisions for adults, and we can't make decisions for adults. We've got to make decisions for kids. And that's tough. That's tough on people to have to let go of some of those things sometime. And all you do is put your nose down and do the best you can do. And if you're doing what you think's right to better the situation, the circumstances that you're given, then that's all you can do.
That's right.
That's all you can do.
Ain't crazy about that idea, but I agree with you on that.
Well, and neither were we. We were, when I first started doing it, I didn't know what we were going to be able to do and how we were going to do it or what we were going to look at doing. We wanted to try to look to see if you could keep it separate. But when we knew that we couldn't, when we knew that wasn't going to be an option, we had to do something. And so then when, my thought before I got in thought, well, a central location is what would be best. I was thinking we're going to, new paint, new shrubs, new everything somewhere in the middle on Highway 50.
Where exactly is it?
It's going to be behind the GFA, the old transportation, behind Ram Stadium on Fairfax Bypass.
Okay.
Right there right behind. So if you're sitting in Ram Stadium and you look at that cleared lot behind transportation, what is now GFA.
Other side of the road.
Mm-hmm, on the other side of the road, that cleared lot, it's about an 80 acre lot. That's where it's going to be. The Developmental Authority in the city about 12 years ago bought all of that land and came in and did a lot of infrastructure work long before this ever came up. And they put in a 12-inch water main. They put in other pumping stations and things for industrial purposes. Mm-hmm. And that piece of property, because it connects to Ram Stadium and the Board of Education owns that, when we started looking at doing this, and we looked and said it would cost us about $18 to $20 million to rebuild Ram Stadium if we had to build it on Highway 50. And when we added that to the cost of the building to try to redo that, we couldn't build the school and the athletic facilities and have enough money to do that. So we had to look at facilities that we could use to do that. Another option would have been to build the school somewhere and then to travel and use Ram Stadium and travel and use the basketball facility at Lafayette. that would not have worked. We would not have done that. That would have been crazy to send kids up and down Highway 50 and parents up and down Highway 50. And that's one thing I said we wasn't going to do. I'm not going to build a $70 or $80 million school and not have the facilities on the campus or close. And doing it there means we don't have to completely rebuild everything. And so it's like when my wife and I was going a couple of years ago looking to buy a pontoon boat. You know, we went over to Lake Martin and we started in the brand new showroom. And we didn't stay in the showroom long, because when I started looking at what the cost of a brand new pontoon boat, $80,000, you know, it didn't take us long to realize I couldn't afford it. Same way with this. It's the same thing with this. It's just a bigger budget. You have to build and do what you can afford. And if you can't afford to do it, I've got to pay the paycheck. My CSFO has to write the debt service. And if we can't afford to do it, then we're just spinning our wheels like we've been doing for the last 50 years. And we tried to do this again. They tried to do it in the 90s, didn't do it. Tried to do it in 2018, 17, 18. We'd have already been in the building by now. My kids would be in it and be graduating from it. But we're still sitting here without one. And it's been long enough. It's been long enough. Well, thank you for your questions.
I wanted to ask now, for folks coming from Lafayette in that direction, are they going to be coming down Highway 50 and turning on Phillips Road to get to the high school? Is that going to be the main route?
No, they'll just be going, if they travel on their own, they'll just travel wherever they're coming from. If they're coming through Fredonia, they'll come different ways. If they come down Highway 50, they'll come different ways. But Highway 50 will be the main corridor coming down from folks in Lafayette. Now, for us, bus route-wise, the way we're going to do bus routes is that we're going to bring everybody to a hub. So we've got about 15 buses that run in the northern part of the county, and there's no sense in all of those buses taking and going from there all down to the new high school when there's only about 3 buses needed. So all of the buses will rendezvous at a hub, which is at Inspire Academy, and there'll be 4 shuttle buses, and kids can either drive over to the hub and leave their car and get on a bus and drive down to the school and then be brought back, or everybody will come get off their bus, get on the shuttle, and go and drive down. And then that afternoon they'll be brought back, and then they'll get on their buses and go home. And then we'll run activities buses in the afternoon and run them back up to the hub for kids. So we'll do that for folks. But it just made more sense too when Valley High School has 650 students and Lafayette has about right at 200. It didn't make sense to us to try to transport 600 north on 50 as opposed to 200 south. And we agree that Highway 50 is a dangerous road, but the county commission, there was no way that they could in a timely manner get it 4-laned or get deceleration lanes put in, and the millions of dollars it was going to take. They've done a great job out at Hughley, and that new intersection there at Hughley is wonderful, but it's taken 10, 12, I mean, there's no, what, 2012, 14? It's been a long time since they started that, and a lot of money, and we couldn't wait for that. And all of those decisions are the ones that kind of went into it, and it was tough. It was a tough decision to make. We're going to have something we're going to be proud of. We're going to have something in our district we're going to really be proud of.
That's right. You're not going to go out and take everybody's yearbooks away from them. They
Nope.
will be proud Bulldogs and Rams and stuff like that. But the little kids, it's not going to matter to them anyway.
Yeah, once
start a
the
new
groups
tradition.
come in and the new traditions and the groups come in, yeah, and we're going to do what we can to preserve the history and preserve those things, and we're building things into the new school, and we're weaving in things from all the different places we're taking pictures and videos from people. We've got a place on our website that people can drop pictures for us, and they're going to build things in that's going to try to keep those traditions alive. And the new kids will come in and build their own, but yeah, they won't go away. We don't want them to go away, and we all cherish those things. But things change. You have to adjust to those changes and adjust with what you have. And this is one of those that's in front of us. And it's tough to begin with, but when you plant the tree and upset the earth, it's tough. But then later on, you get fruit from it. So
That's right.
well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank
I'll
you.
stay if anybody else has any other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How's it going, Mr.?
Got to follow that up, really? For those of you who don't know me, though every face in here except for this young man who I've had the privilege to meet now is very familiar. My name is Paul Story. I've served in the past 5 years as your probate judge for Chambers County, and I'm seeking re-election for another term. Just a little bit about myself, because it's been, 5 years since I've had the opportunity to speak to you in this capacity. I'm 40 years old, proud father of 3 wonderful children, or mostly wonderful children. They're 15, 14. So, of course, I am a proud graduate of Valley High School, class 2001. I graduated from Southern Union with an applied math and sciences degree, and currently serving on several boards serving our community. I'm on the Charter Foundation Board, as well as the Circle of Care Board, and also now a member of the Regional Mental Health Board for our 5-county catchment area. A little bit about the office, for those of you who know a little bit about probate, the commonly known services that we provide are tax and titles, also dealing with driver's license renewals and duplications, and also dealing with wills and estates. At the passing of a loved one, we help manage the estates and make sure that things are done properly by the Code of Alabama. Also, we deal with recordation of most of the county's documents through deeds, plats, power of attorney, whatever may be brought in. In fact, the joke 9 times out of 10 is that we'll record a bubblegum wrapper if it's got something written on the signature, because by law we're not allowed to turn away stuff if it's deemed to be proper. But we deal with legitimations, we deal with legal name changes. One of my most favorite things, and I'm sure most of y'all can agree, is adoptions. Getting to make a family whole, taking a child out of a situation that may not be the best, working towards finding them a forever home. Love those days. In fact, when I first started, I was working with DHR. There are several back cases that have been sitting there for a year, 2 years, that need to be taken care of. At no fault, just the way things go sometimes with the home studies that have to be done and everything else. But we had our largest adoption day in Chambers County. We had 8 in a single day. We're looking now to have 12 in a day. And not that we're trying to compete or do anything, but it's just trying to bring these families together, making them whole, and giving these children and those men and women who are fostering the peace that is going to be their child, their home going forward. Now, what I'm most passionate about, because I worked at East Alabama, well, EAMC Lanier, but Lanier when I worked there. I worked in the ER, I worked in the lab, and also had the privilege of working with Dr. David Fagan. But what I dealt with a lot, and what y'all have probably dealt with in the community, or what you've seen others have to deal with in families, is mental health. The probate court has primary jurisdiction for all mental health hearings, minus juvenile. 19 and up, that's where probate comes in. And we deal with involuntary commitments of those individuals who have mental health issues that are not able to get the care, whether it's a limitation in services in the area, whether it's limitation or lack of care, shall I say, by the family, or whether it's just the fact that they don't have a good understanding of what they're experiencing and how they can get the help. So that's where probate court comes in. We work hard through involuntary commitment process to get an individual detained, not robbing of their civil liberties. What we do prior is we will have a conversation once a petition is filed with our local entity, East Alabama Mental Health. We will have them review the petition with me and then verify if there's an imminent threat to themselves or someone else, or if they're experiencing a psychotic break, whether it's speaking to unseen others, or responding to unseen things, or, as I said, self-harm, harm to those in the community or their family. If they meet that criteria, which is state law, in the past 7 to 10 days prior to the filing of that petition, then we will have them picked up by our local law enforcement agency. We'll have them transported and evaluated to see if there's a cause for them to receive further treatment. What we are working with now in the state, just to kind of segue into this first before I get too far ahead, is right now we're working for legislation to try to have it where instead of that 7 to 10 day mark, because when it gets to that point, the individuals are already in a bad mental state. They're already either harmed themselves, they already have caused damage to property, something else that's caused them to be detained and brought to our local detention center, which is, that's not where they belong. They don't belong in jail, they belong getting the care that they need at East Alabama Mental Health or another facility. But what we're working with now for legislation is to get it where we can look back at the past 1.5 to 2 years, that recidivism, because, you know, as I mentioned earlier, some of them have family that don't care for them, don't have a means, and so there's a high recidivism for some of our citizens. And we're working to look back at that before there's a break, before there's a major issue, that we can take and offer them assistance through a mobile crisis response team, through critical response, through BIT, brief intensive treatment, or one of the other emergency services, And we actually have a state level program that is crisis prevention now. The only hub we have close right now is Montgomery. They're working to bring in one closer to us, whether it be Opelika or a little further north. Of course, y'all have probably seen where they're building the new psychiatric unit in Lee County, and that's going to offer beds and services for our citizens. One thing that was limited when I first started in office, and thankfully we've been able to work toward and rectify, is Jerry site care. Individuals that are 60 and over, 9 times out of 10 what would happen is they would have to see their primary care physician, and they would have to diagnose them and work to get them a facility that was proper for them. And there were very limited facilities in the state of Alabama. East Alabama worked with Lanier Services and individuals in the community, and we were able to get what's called a senior behavioral unit at East Alabama. And I will tell you right now, it is well thought of across the state. We get individuals from across, but now we have somewhere that our citizens that are of that age and of that necessity, they have a means to get the care that they need. So that's just a little bit about mental health, and of course I could speak more about that, but for the sake of time, one other function of the probate office is dealing with elections. The probate judge is the elections manager for the county. The circuit clerk is absentee. That's the only part that the judge does not work with, is absentee. The probate judge is the one that sets the ballots, orders, gets the machines tested, handles any and all oversight on the day of the election, and also manages the reporting to the state. Now, that I am opposed this time, there's a couple of things I had to step back from. I cannot be the one that has oversight on election day. I had to have my chief clerk step into that role, and I cannot handle the poll worker appointment, and that's by the Code of Alabama. Now, by that same law, I could test the machines, but due to the fact I don't want any view of impropriety to think that there's anything tampered with, because we know that elections are so heavily watched since 2020 that any small error could bring up a lot of frustration for people and the money. Well, exactly. So I've got our ES&S, our election systems company in the state, to come in, and they're going to do the testing and maintenance to make sure everything's proper, and they're going to handle election night reporting. So that's just a little bit about probate. Is there any major questions before I move on?
Who you running again?
The gentleman's name is Troy Davis. He's a young man from Valley, 32 years old, I believe. Can't say I know much about him. Seems to be a nice young man. He had recently lost his job at Baxter and was pointed towards this position, and so he is my running mate at this time.
Are our voting machines online?
Voting machines are not online. I was imagining that was going to be one question for sure, because that's a question I get a lot. I knew it was coming. No, the tabulators are a single unit. They're not able to connect to Wi-Fi. They're not able to go digital. The only thing they do is there's a thumb drive that is programmed by ES&S that has all the ballot styles and the means to test them. That's brought in whenever we do the, they call it L&A, but when we do the testing and setup for election day, they are actually stuck in, read. There's test ballots run through to make sure that it reads the margins, make sure it reads the results off the ballot itself, and make sure it tabulates them properly. That's it. The brain of that machine is that thumb drive, and they are sent through secure aspect, through mailing, and some of them are even hand delivered. It just depends on how close we are to ES&S. But those are the only part that retain any data, and that's the only way that we can check them in on election night, is we actually put them into a unit, a laptop that is now provided by the state of Alabama, has no way to connect to anything. We plug it in, they read it, we burn that into another thumb drive, we take that to a proper computer, one that can connect to internet, and we send that to Secretary of State, and we mail in that as well for verification by them. So Alabama has a very good system. Now, for that fact, there's never been real talk of any kind of issue in our election process in the state of Alabama, but most states have a post-election audit. And what that entails is they take the results from that election, whether it be a single state or a single county election at so many precincts. They take those ballots, they run them back through a clean machine, or they hand count to verify that the numbers match. So right now myself and Representative Wood and some other judges are working on a post-election audit bill looking at roughly 5 to 10%. It's not been determined, we're still talking that, but they want to get it in legislation this year. But I think it's crucial.
Yeah.
I know there's some judges that don't agree with me on that because it's extra work for us. It is. But ultimately, we try to safeguard our integrity through these processes. We've always, exactly. So we're looking at 5 to 10%, which for our county would be 1 precinct, possibly 2, depending on which ones you look at. And we would take 1 state race, 1 county race, and we would take a machine. We would have a fresh tabulator. We'd have a fresh stick that would read those ballots for that particular precinct, because they're all coded per precinct too, because different precincts have different ballot styles. There's a different style in Valley that you won't see in Lafayette, because now this time we have one of our school board District 1 will be running, and he is opposed, and so that's a different ballot. So they have 3 ballot styles. So normally the basic ballot style would be Republican, Democrat, and then constitutional amendment only. So it would be set to read whatever was proper for that precinct. You feed the ballots back in, make sure that that number matches what you had originally on the tape, because there's several tapes printed out at the end of the night for us to provide, one to media, one to, of course, you've seen them hanging on the doors, and then one that comes back to me and one that goes to the state. And so what I would do, when I ran that position this time and what I have done in the past, is when you read those sticks in, you have the tape to go through and make sure that the number of ballots equal out to what they're supposed to. And then, of course, with our electronic poll books, you can also verify the number of voters that were checked in. So there's good checks and balances already, but this is just an added bonus for us to take away that concern, that general, like with what you've mentioned of Dominion, where they've had states that have had several issues with the tabulators. We're trying to take away any and all concern. That way we know that Alabama is in good standing with the integrity for our elections. We did get new poll books this time. I know y'all probably seen them when y'all gone to vote. It's the large tablets that you spin around. Well, those have become, the obsolescence on those have been reached. And to go back with the same company that we were with would have cost roughly about 65 to 70 grand for the same number of tablets we already had. And the same service and the same issues with uploading some of the stuff to the state site or working with the state for reporting after the fact. So what we did is we went with the S&S, the company that provides our tabulators already. They're the ones that manage Power Profile, which is the voter registration program in the state of Alabama. They have a poll book that within moments off of a thumb drive we can load the full election. That way we don't have the issue of working with this company, having to work with this company to get it loaded, and having issues where we have to go back and triple check to make sure all of our voters who are active are in the system, make sure everything's notated after absentee process is complete. We have the capability now to load simply, quickly, and by far easier to use for our poll workers, because we have some wonderful folks that, of course, it's normally the older populace who are retired that are willing to work, and those, we were talking earlier. People just don't care about being involved. So it's hard to find anyone to volunteer. Now, it's semi-volunteer because you make about $125 to $175 depending on what position you have at the poll. It's still not a lot for somebody to give up a training day that's going to take 4 hours at a poll worker school, and then going to take a 14-hour day on elections. And then if you're the poll inspector, that's coming back to the courthouse and waiting until we get the results ready to make sure everything's proper and that all your equipment's turned in. It's hard to ask people to do that don't show general care for their community. So we've started an initiative in the state. We did it 2 cycles ago technically. In 2020 we started it, had some fair response, had a little more response this time, where we offer credit hours for students that are 18 years old in high school, and since they're able to be registered voters, we allow them to come in. They earn credit hours for servicing the polls, whether it be working with the tabulator, standing by, making sure it's proper, whether it's working with poll pads, or whether it's helping maintain the site itself, to give them some means of involvement and some means of, work in the process, get them excited about it. Because, you see kids now that don't even want to get their driver's license at 16. That was a rite of passage when I turned 16, which wasn't too long ago, thankfully. It's long enough, though. But, you just don't see people that care about the simple things in life anymore. And elections are not simple, but they are important. So that's one way that we've tried to instill a little bit of interest in our younger population. So I think I've covered a lot. I'm sure there's more I've missed. I chase rabbits continuously. But is there any questions that y'all have about probate, about elections, anything at all? Yes, sir.
Could you highlight any experiences you've had to work with West Allen's office in Seaton? over as Secretary of State?
Oh, certainly. Well, I was one of the judges that has swapped over to have swapped over to ES&S for the poll books, and we had to go and they have to vet each one of these entities, these vendors that bring in, and of course the equipment they offer. So I was partying with the expediting of getting this brought into the state with that particular part. And then certainly I'm on the elections committee for the APJA, so I'm the one that helps try to work for this post-election audit bill, which we're working with Wes Allen on that. And just in general, he was a retired probate judge. So he actually has fantastic insight. So he's visited our county and several others to try to get some kind of input, whether it be the post-election audit bill, whether it be dealing with the LLCs that now are, of course, filed electronically. A few different things. Wes, great guy, great to work with, and has done a lot in that office already, fighting for our rights through election
He
process.
typically shows up to this state.
Oh yeah, Wes is very much a Second Amendment man.
Absolutely.
He is that. So, but it's been a joy working with him, what I have thus far. So, any other questions? Okay.
You believe Joe Biden got 80 million votes?
And I'm going to step off on that. Thank